Welcome back to the show. Today with me, I got Ian Gentile. He is the player development high performance for USA Football. Following a 13-year career with the NHL Chicago Blackhawks, Ian joins USA Football as the director of high performance for its national teams. Also with us is Charles Torwudzo Jr., the senior coordinator of football ops and sports performance. Also a former athlete himself at Purdue and in the IFL. And today, the organization that we're talking about is USA Football. As a former football athlete myself, this is really exciting to explore new opportunities and horizons. The U.S. national team is one of the family teams that made up of youth and adult players. They scout, train, and showcase men and women and help everyone compete to make a national team to elevate their game. Only USA Football is a part of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and they recognize as the U.S. national governing body of the International Federation of American Football. The opportunity specifically that we're going to be outlining, that we're highlighting in today's conversation, and also obviously about USA Football, but will be about their flag football digital combine on Game Time, which will run October 17th through December 16th. We will obviously be posting the links below, shouting that out on social. But really, this is to become a part of the elite pool eligible for selection to compete for Team USA at the 2023 IFAF Continental Championships. What an opportunity. 2022 Talent ID camps evaluate for the 2023 U.S. Flag National Team. This Combine and Talent ID is part of USA Football's high performance program designed to evaluate athletes all over the country. That's what we're going to get into, all of the new ways that we can provide that access. And this will be the best chance to represent the U.S. versus international competition. And top athletes will be identified through the Digital Combine, will be among those invited to attend U.S. Flag National Team trials. And obviously the best, they're going to be selected to represent the U.S. 2023. That's what we're talking about. That's the table stakes on this podcast. We talk about connecting athletes to opportunities. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I want to start right with it. We outlined the combine. Tell us a little bit about the goals. What are we trying to achieve, and how are we moving forward towards 2023?
Yeah, thanks, Joey. So flag football specifically in this country is really at an exciting point of its development and kind of has this sense that it's about to take off, right, and take the next step. If you're even a casual follower or observer, you're seeing articles more and more. You're hearing the NFL moving its Pro Bowl to flag football, high school associations adopting the sport, right? Flag football is definitely primed to take the next step, and so are the national teams. So that's where we're at, and we've arrived at that next step in our development, and we're ready for the next step up in class and sophistication. And what we've identified is the digital combine, I guess specifically, is that need to inject elite athleticism into the sport. So Charles can talk about this too, but when this game is played with elite athletes, it's special. Like, you don't even have to know much about the sport of flag, but when you see it played by elite athletes, it's high energy, high intensity, fast paced, short area quickness, those great catches. It's a sport that lends itself to like elite athleticism. So for us, I think the digital combine is kind of the perfect opportunity to find elite athletes in other disciplines, introduce them to this sport, and you're still getting in at the ground floor of what could be an Olympic runway. So that's kind of the excitement of and the intent of doing it here in 2022, is that there's still a lot of runway. Even if you're a complete rank newcomer to the sport, there's plenty of time to get yourself playing and acquainted with the sport in a major way in advance of wherever this is headed. So Charles, I mean, you've seen the development too. You could probably speak to that.
No, absolutely. And I think that you kind of nailed it. Joey, obviously appreciate the introduction. One thing I'll say is this, teaming up with Game Time and having this virtual combine and the digital combine, the thing that we're getting ready to embark on here soon in the next couple months, It's exciting. It's very exciting because, again, I can't tell you how many times that myself or Ian or even Eric Mays, have landed somewhere in person and have had the question asked, how do I get noticed? How do I do this? How do I do that? And here it is, right? I mean, there's no better opportunity than one we got getting ready to come up. Again, it opens up the fold for a lot of different athletes from a lot of different different avenues and in different sports. So it's something we're extremely excited about, and obviously we can't wait to get underway, man. We're excited to be part of Game Time.
Absolutely. And I even think for myself, I played and I was a lineman. And when I left college, flag gave me the opportunity. As I lost the weight, I kept moving out and I became that X receiver. I was making the jump balls. And it
Okay.
truly allows you to want to explore that athleticism, though. And you kind of mentioned it, that it really is, about it's kind of a different sport, right? And it's a different skill set, from flag. You see, the different flips and the acrobatics, of the game. And, really, I think it comes to awareness, right? And when I think, flag athletes, myself, I was a former lineman, but I see, former lacrosse players, former basketball players coming to kind of explore. Talk a little bit about, those type of athletes that you're trying to attract, the awareness. That kind of sounded like what, through the digital combine, this is the first step, right? It's, hey, here we are, USA football, and here are the types of athletes that can make an impact in this sport.
Well, Joey, so you were a former tackle football player. Charles was a former tackle football player. That's a pretty linear line to flag, right? Like you can see that.
Totally.
It's a similar skill set. You have a fundamental understanding of the sport, the short area quickness, short area bursts, understanding what it means to be a football player. That's not a stretch to understand that. I think tackle players there's a natural appeal to continuing to play after a career or transitioning to the sport of flag. So that's a very linear path. But I think what athletes from other disciplines are going to find is that it's a really fun sport. It's explosive. You do learn it quickly, when taught and introduced in the right environment. That those first three steps, that explosive ability, not worrying about going across the middle and getting your head taken off by a middle linebacker. I think that applies too, and it's a sport that allows you to continue to play maybe after a collegiate career, after you've been banged up or after some injury. So I think there's some appeal there. But if you're an elite athlete, this is a sport that kind of demonstrates that. And Joey, a former lineman, we see a lot of them in our sport, but we also see a lot of guys like Chuck who've had, successful careers at the skill positions. It's a more natural transition, but it's not exclusive to that for sure.
Yeah, and I want to dig into that because for this combine, you know, there are two different teams, two different age ranges, and for this one, we're talking 18 plus. So that really is, in Chuck and I's kind of demo and age range. So, Chuck, what is your experience with former athletes? Different guys looking for opportunities. I know my former teammates played in the XFL, played in the AAF, all of these different leagues. To me, I already know one of my former teammates, Jeff Godfrey. He's an unbelievable flag, player. I'm going to have him immediately look into this. But anybody in this demographic, really, Chuck, what are your thoughts and what are the conversations you have?
I mean, let's get one thing straight, man. Out of the gate, as a receiver, flag is incredible because think about it. Throughout in one quarter of a game, or let's go even a full game, right? You're going to get 8 targets, right? Now with flag, it's basically basketball on grass. You know what I mean? Like we're spreading it out, we're speeding up the tempo of the game. Everybody, if you're on the field, you're a receiver, so you can touch the rock multiple times throughout the game. And it's fun, it's fast paced, and frankly, it almost sells itself, right? Like there's in every city that we go to, there's different flag football leagues. A lot of them have different rules and stuff like that. But the thing that's the commonality between all of it is people are out there enjoying themselves. It's an entry point to the game of football in general. And frankly, it's just a fun, fast-paced tempo game, man. So we're super excited. Like I said, the idea behind basketball on grass, that's actually what one of my coaches recruited me to Purdue with. That idea was we'll get our athletes out wide, we'll spread them out. It's basketball on grass, we're moving. But this genuinely is 5-on-5 style, a lot faster. Everybody's going to be able to touch the ball. Everybody's going to get involved in the game a lot sooner. And frankly, even at a younger age, right? Like when I was younger, you see that the passing skill set isn't quite as developed as the run game, obviously, right? Because the young bucks aren't really going to be able to air it out quite as much. So you get them involved with the flag, they get more, they get more adapt to catching the football, passing the football. That's even at a younger age. So I mean, the game of flag, and as Ian mentioned earlier, excuse me, with the Pro Bowl and everything going to that format as well, that's just another feather in our cap, and frankly, just continues to make that conversation continue to go forward. So it's been fun, man. It's been fun up to this point. Again, looking forward into 2022 and what we got going on with the combine, it's definitely going to be some good stuff.
Well, I think something that I'm just coming up with on the spot that I think is interesting, which I'm just noticing in this conversation, is tackle football is almost following flag in a sense that this almost feels more of its more natural, organic state. I remember when I was at UCF, my quarterback was Blake Bortles, and anytime he could, naturally, we're going hurry up. And I remember one game he was calling plays. It was like 20 straight passes in a row. You would have thought he was playing flag on the field, but it just was organically going. That's where the fun gravitates. That's kind of where the game has followed, right? As we see in a lot of these fast-paced offenses, it's all about how many plays that you can run. So it's really fun to see the trajectory, which I think does open it up to more athletes. With the current teams, have you seen any successful transfer, athletes? That's the terminology we usually use on this podcast when athletes are transferring their skill sets, adapting them from one sport to another. Are there any low-hanging fruit sports? I think when we think of at least receiver, we think of track and field as kind of the obvious kind of crossovers. But talk a little bit about any athletes on current teams on your radar right now that are really impressing you that may not be football native, like Ian said before. Chuck and myself, we have this background, but talk a little bit about who those transfer prospects might be, where they might come from.
Yeah, no, that's
well, Charles, you can talk. I mean, especially on the women's side, Charles. Tell them a little bit about what the kind of the success we've seen there.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, so on the women's side, it's a little bit more unique, right? Because they don't even really have the option technically to go from like a tackle format of the game to a flag format of the game. So all of our women athletes are crossover athletes. Incredible, right? You have athletes like Joe Overstreet, Michelle Roque, who plays for us currently as well. These are some players that typically would run track, or some of them play basketball. Like Nadia Bibbs was a point guard. She was on our women's national team when we were at the World Games and stuff like that. So football players on the men's side, kind of a no-brainer, right? But on the women's side, track, volleyball, softball, basketball, soccer, a lot of quick area, short area quickness is involved in that game as well. So to be honest with you, man, I'm excited. Me and Ian have been having countless conversations around the type of athletes that we want to start looking into. And I'm also excited about the athletes that we don't know about yet. For example, swimming athletes are incredibly, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Their stamina and their endurance and their conditioning is completely on a different level more times than not, right? So yeah. I'm excited to see how these other athletes that show interest in what we have going on, and ultimately how they would perform in person as well. So we got a lot of options for sure.
Yeah, I think Charles raises a good point. It's there's some sports that naturally come to mind that you can make those connections, right? It is track. It is whether it's soccer, whether it's basketball, volleyball, even things like that. But I think what we're most excited about is learning of what backgrounds do transfer well in a more formal setting, in a game time setting, in a digital combine setting. Once we bring you together for an in-person event, we may find there's some sport that we're not even thinking of or that's not even on our radar that lends itself really naturally to talent transfer. But, I would say the good news in these early days, it just appears that elite athleticism, quickness, explosiveness, vertical, those are all things, whatever sport you're in and whatever discipline that is, it's going to transfer nicely to this sport too.
Well, and the other thing, I think about, especially with what we've seen at Game Time with the organizations that we work with, not just can you see all of these athletes, but you mentioned how you evaluate them. How long would you guess it takes to see the right thing from a transfer talent and say, this athlete should be in our pipeline? How long on average do you think if you see the right thing? Five
Well,
seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, right? In reality, that's what we think about is what are those things? But go on, Ian.
yeah, the digital combine is really going to showcase a general athleticism, explosiveness, strength, mobility, acceleration, change of direction, the sorts of things that you may think of that transfer naturally to the game. So we feel that we're going to capture a lot of that with Game Time, and that if you submit the tests in the protocol that we're asking for, we're going to be able to get at exactly what we're looking for in terms of, again, that overall athleticism, mobility, explosiveness, change of direction, speed. I think where it's going to get really exciting, and I'm certain we'll get to this, is once we have that boots on the ground talent transfer ID camp and literally getting the ball out there and getting you on the field and seeing what that looks like, teaching you up in the sport. That's going to get really exciting. To bring elite athletes actually out on the field and introduce them to the game. So it starts with just that showcasing your athletic ability that we feel translates. We're not looking for a 500-pound back squat in this sport, right? Makes sense. Linemen and the kinds of things you might think of typically for tackle football. That sort of pure strength, that type of number, a big bench press number, may not have that kind of transference to the sport. Whereas it's more the 40, it's the L drill. There might still be a chest press, but maybe we're looking for something a little differently. So these are early days. This is fun. I think we're going to learn a lot as we get going, and there's going to be tweaks. And I suspect our third talent transfer ID camp and our third combine, the testing protocol may very well be different than the first one. We're going to learn as we go. But in these early days, and especially with our first combine, we're looking for overall freak athletes, and we think we're going to be able to see that.
Well, and that's all you really can do, and that's the interesting thing. As we work with organizations, when you evaluate transfer talent, it's different. Chuck, we know in football, and Ian, I'm sure for hockey, those scouts, those recruiters, if I'm evaluating a player that's played flag for 4 years, I'm going to watch every game. I'm going to evaluate all these things, take detailed notes. If I'm evaluating a player that doesn't play my sport, I might not watch every basketball game. I only need to see them do a 360 dunk one time as a coach to say, I can do a lot with that. And to me, this is what I think you outlined, really clearly, Ian, is that this combine is the first step. And guess what? Athletes who are looking for that next opportunity, that are saying, I could still do something. I can still achieve that dream. The next Kurt Warner, the next, insert athlete that has come back to achieve great things when they thought they may not be able to. It can start with a clip, right? And that's not going to be the shortcut that's going to get you hanging a gold medal. No, there's going to be in-person experience. There's going to be everything you know and love about sport. But to start, Chuck, it's simple, right? Upload the clip that you show your friends, that you show on a date, that your grandma looks at when she thinks about your playing career. Upload that clip.
100%. And to kind of even, add to that part, baseline athleticism is really going to be the biggest thing, right? Like, baseline athleticism is big, but they're no different than bobsled. We want to see how you respond and what your ball skills and stuff like that look like, right? No different than if you're pulling a football player or a track athlete onto the ice, putting them around a sled. Okay, how do they interact with the sled? Is it something that they could do? That's kind of how we feel towards the football side of things, right? Like, again, you can run a lightning speed 40. If you run a 4.1 40, 4.2, whatever it is, we want to see what you look like with the football in your hands. So that's definitely going to be one of the KPIs moving forward as well.
And if that's step two, step one, Joey, like you said, is is just nailing that virtual combine. Like, and it's funny when you start talking about transfer athletes, and I went to the University of Illinois watching college basketball this year. The fifth year senior felt like he's been there forever. Point guard, right? I found myself noticing. You start thinking differently. You start thinking overall athleticism. Like, this kid is a freak athlete. I've watched him for 5 years. He can jump through the roof. He's a point guard or maybe a two guard, but he handles the ball a lot. So he has a lot of that court IQ, that field general ability, change of direction, natural God-given athletic ability. And it's funny, you start looking at athletes differently. So here I've been watching this kid play for 5 years, and I'm thinking, like, I'd love to see him play flag football, because I bet you he would be a terrific flag athlete, maybe even a flag quarterback, because he can jump through the roof. He's fast. His overall, that field general ability. It's just the sorts of things you look for, that hip fluidity. If you're a natural athlete, this is a sport that's going to showcase that.
Absolutely. No, it's at the end of the day, what this is all about is, if he plays in the NBA, amazing, and he will be rewarded for that. But our view as a company, Game Time, we view sports as a vehicle for opportunity. So say he doesn't achieve that opportunity of playing in the NBA with a minimum salary of $750,000 or $1 million or something. The world basically says, you have a value of zero, right? Or go get a real job or join the workforce. And for us, it's no. If you're an elite athlete, as elite as Ian, has talked about in terms of what he's capable of doing, jumping, or just respective of other, athletes or people pursuing sports, there should be more opportunities. And not only that, but they shouldn't be difficult to access. They should be, just like it sounds like we want to do, they should be chasing after these type of athletes. And that's kind of the ultimate dream of, how this combine can help your staff is, while you're on the road, send that link, to him. Hey, upload your best dunk. This is just the process. This is the starting point. Again, Chuck, to your point, there's a lot of those tactical things we want to look at in terms of putting a ball in your hand. Okay, we're hypothesizing, is he good at quarterback? Is he good at wide receiver? We'll see. But at least we now have a starting point. And to me, that makes the future, those old conversations you have when you watch, rugby, or, oh, what if Adrian Peterson played this sport? Now for flag football, it's here.
Oh, 100%. And to that point, so we threw together a little bit of a list. I was throwing some names out there, and you think of athletes that are, Hall of Famer athletes, or guys that could potentially be in a gold coat one day, like a T.O. or like a Chad Johnson, guys that probably still have a little bit left in their tank. This is again another great opportunity if we were able to not necessarily be a transfer athlete, because they do play football, they're familiar with the game, but not this specific format, this specific style. You think of other women, like, I don't know how close you follow on Instagram. There's this girl named Jenna Bandy. She does a bunch of different basketball stuff. She does a bunch of different football throwing, stuff like that. So, I mean, the well of athletes that are elite but not getting paid as a professional. I mean, the well it's crazy, and we're looking forward to tapping into that, because again, there's definitely a place in this market for it.
Yeah. And to me, it's a shame. We love football, and the sport of football is expanding, and we've, highlighted not just the men's side, but the women's side, which is critical to the growth of the sport. But to think about the idea of a dream team in football for men, for women, as an athlete, especially as a former football player myself, it doesn't really get much better. And so, for that, we're obviously excited about this. And, you talked, really about the sport growing. And I think, I'm already seeing how athletes from all sports, all areas, as they're easily submitting this, to finding opportunities. How else do you see the sport growing, right? There's obviously the athletes getting into your talent pipeline as well. But talk a little bit about the infrastructure. Let's zoom out from the combine just a little bit. Let's talk about flag kind of more in general. What is the landscape of growth between different leagues or different organizations? I'd love to kind of, set that stage as well.
Man, that's a great question. That's a fully loaded question at that, because the adult landscape and the youth landscape, although very similar, completely different at the same time. As far as how it's growing, so this past year we had what was called the World Games in Birmingham, Alabama, which there was over 40 different sports and there was over 100 different countries that were represented. And in our specific pool, um, I guess just in our sport, actually in general, in the flag football realm, we had 8 different teams. And as it continues to progress, the tournament continues to go on, the more coverage and the more people, the sidelines started to get a little bit more packed, and then the stands started to get filled up a little bit more, right? So, I mean, not only is it growing globally from a World Games perspective, this past December we were in Israel for an IFAF World Championships, and there was actually over 40 flag teams that were at that event. Mexico is a prime example of a program that has continued to take off like a rocket. They actually beat our women's team most recently here at the World Games. So as far as it growing, I mean, there's no denying that sport is continually growing, and the trajectory is wild. It's actually going at a faster pace than tackle, I believe, over the past like 3 years, I believe. But yeah, I mean, there's the sky is the limit, and really the sky isn't even the limit, because it's going to continue to even grow faster than that. Because when you think about the game of tackle football, right, there's a lot of barriers that are associated with that. You need helmets, you need shoulder pads, you need a big amount of people, you need a big field. When it comes to flag, all that it is flags and a ball, right? A couple cones to kind of mark off the field. But again, the barriers are significantly lower, which allows the sport to continue to grow that much more fast. So yeah, I mean, since I've been at USA Football, my involvement in flag has continued to ratchet up, and for good reason, because the sport as a whole is continuing to ratchet up and continuing to grow. So, man, it's an exciting time for this game.
Yeah, so Charles has been here for 5 or 6 years now, Charles, and he's been a part of all of this. For me, it was 13 years in the NHL, and I'm still 10 months into understanding this landscape, right? And what I found out pretty quickly was there's a very healthy grassroots youth flag football scene and thing that's happening. Parents are very excited to get athletes into flag at young ages. There's vibrant leagues, there's travel teams. They love their swag, and like it's a sport that's so big on swag and showing out, and they try to top each other on jerseys and on everything else. So the youth the youth sport, the youth level is just growing like a weed, and it's dynamic and it's competitive. There's elite travel teams, and I think historically, when we all grew up, and I played football too growing up, we thought of flag as maybe the predecessor to tackle, or you start in flag and then, especially if you were a boy, you're going to transition to tackle. Well, now what we're seeing is that for our girls, they're staying in flag, and they love the sport of flag, and they're playing it into their adolescence in high school, into college. It's now an NAIA sport. It's sanctioned at the high school level in a lot of states. So girl athletes are able to stay in the sport exclusively. Boy athletes are now choosing to stay in the sport because they love it that much and because it's growing. So a lot of those athletes that would traditionally have moved on to tackle, they're either staying exclusively in flag or they're playing their tackle, but they understand that flag complements it very well. So it's in a really healthy place at the youth level, and I think that's only going to continue to get better. Credit to USA Football as an organization. We're going to take a leading role in tournaments, sanctioning, elevating that competitive landscape at youth, so that when you play flag football in this country, there's maybe one version that's played, a well-known playbook, a well-known rule book. You're growing the sport. There's a tournament structure, maybe rankings and times and these sorts of things. USA Football leading the way in that is really exciting. What I found on the adult side was that, and this is not a slight to the adult community, but it's still very recreational in nature, right? These are men and women who have jobs, they have kids, they work their 9 to 5s, and this is their thing they do for fun. They don't golf. This is This is what they do.
Every Wednesday, baby. Every Wednesday. I was the Orlando League MVP. Come on,
That's
here
just
we
it.
go.
Here we go.
And it's a fierce community, and they're friends, and they travel, and they all know each other, and it's again, it's a really healthy recreational space. I think what's really exciting though is that recreational element's always going to be there. This is a sport that's always going to be there for people to go back to after their collegiate careers or to play. I think what's so fun now is we're seeing that infusion of elite, high performance athleticism and options at the adult level. So if you don't want to necessarily, I was always a bad recreational athlete because I had a hard time checking it at the door, right? Like I was the guy who was still just a little too fierce, right? Well, maybe you want to pursue those upper levels of elite, high performance adult flag. Again, USA Football leading the way there. And I think that's what the Talent Transfer ID Camp is going to do. That's what our virtual campaign is going to do. It's showing that, okay, I'm something more than just a recreational athlete. Like, it's fun. I want to do it. I want to be a part of a rec team and make sure I'm out there playing, competing. But if I want to walk a higher path, if I want to pursue the Olympics, say, in 28, which is very much on our radar, we're not shying away from that.
Be a part of the dream team, the first.
Be a part of a dream team. Be a part of really like a trailblazing effort of these are the earliest days of this sport in an elite, high performance way. That's literally happening right now. And you can be a rank amateur to this sport and still be getting in at the ground floor at the adult level. I mean, I really believe that. Now, these youngsters that have been playing the game their whole life, they're going to have a leg up on you, and that's only going to get better in future years. But if you're still brand new to the sport today, you're still getting in at the ground floor.
Hey, and as a company and in business, you always think about growth, the growth trajectory. You're an employee or where you want to be. You want to be where things are growing. And for an athlete looking for opportunities, they take their rec league a little too seriously. It's okay. We're with you.
100%.
We hear you, and we have an outlet for where you want to put that intention. No, but all of that, for me, again, my personal story with Flag is, I think it was my city or my community that ran the league. I'm honestly not even sure, right? And we won all of our games. We won the championship, and there were definitely people that you're wondering, where did they come from? How were they just on this field doing this? And to think that now USA Football is here to help kind of consolidate and be that opportunity to be, any basketball player playing in a gym, they want to go to the NBA. They want to play for USA Basketball. They want to win that gold. Helping provide that dream, helping provide that identity, for the sport, I think is super special. And so Chuck, give me some examples, of how, some real tactical, real world different things coming up, or how might you see, USA Football support, different teams, different, handing out, whether you're handing out, certain uniforms or gears or whatnot, what are the real ways that USA Football, again, even zooming out from the combine, we're talking just the support for Flag in general. Talk about some of the stuff that you're doing, some of the stuff that USA Football is doing to help enable, and move the sport forward.
Of course. And I got to say hats off and kudos to our organization because, again, we do a tremendous job at making sure that we have an outreach arm and we have a million different things going at once. So, again, another fully loaded question, but I'll definitely say, working with NFL clubs specifically and helping them do the outreach in their community. Prime example, I actually have a flight that leaves tomorrow morning for Los Angeles, and it's going to be the Chargers in LA, and it's also going to be the Los Angeles Rams in LA. We're going to be at SoFi. We're giving out uniforms, flag football uniforms to 16 different underprivileged or underserved schools in that community out there in LA. So like a Crenshaw, I know Inglewood, Long Beach, a couple of those different schools are all going to be out there. So we do the best to make sure that we impact those communities the best that we can. We did the same thing in Chicago with the Chicago Bears a couple weeks ago as well. But I got to give credit where credit is due. The NFL has great relationships in a lot of these communities, and us being the USA Football, being in the national governing bodies, we're fortunate to be able to just partner with a lot of these clubs in their communities and then step out and assist them in any way that we possibly can. So we're making it rain with a lot of jerseys and a lot of uniforms on these girls' teams. So they're extremely grateful for it. They look great in the Nike swoosh too, by the way. So shout out to Nike for being there as well. So yeah, man, we do a great job, and we're only continuing to grow our footprint in that space as well.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
awesome. And
Charles, I was just going to say, Charles nailed it from that USA Football holistic growth of the sport standpoint. Like that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. What's new to USA Football, and again, USA Football has been known for that for years. Is that we're the frontward facing element of the sport in this country. We are the national governing body. It's something that we take very seriously, and growing the sport and doing these sorts of things. I think what the community and what these athletes may not know is the step up in class and sophistication our national teams are taking at both the junior level and the adult level. And that's going to be something entirely new to USA Football. And 23 is shaping up to be, quite frankly, a historic sort of year for this organization. It starts with something like the virtual combine, data-driven sports performance testing on an Olympic level, on a professional level, where we're going to be able to get that sort of information immediately. We're generating individualized strength and conditioning programming based on your sports performance numbers. Nutritional programming, if you're a national team athlete, based on your blood work. This is the kind of elite athlete service that other national governing bodies and Olympic programs are known for. USA Football is there in 23. Like we're quite literally going to be training at Olympic levels in as early as 23. And that goes for the junior and the adult levels. So at the end of January, that is that talent transfer ID camp. That's where we're bringing those men and women from the virtual combine. You're coming to Charlotte for a 4-day event, a boots on the ground event where you're going to be put through elite medical and physical testing. And then we teach you the sport for another 2.5, 3 days. You're out there with our national team coaches in sort of a judgment-free zone, right? These are all people that are new to the game. You're in the judgment-free zone, but you're learning the sport, training with the national team coaches in this elite environment. And the standouts from that camp, from that talent ID camp, they're going to get direct invites to our adult team trials, which are going to be in mid-March. So this talent transfer ID camp at the end of January leads to our adult trials, which are in mid-March, again in Charlotte. This is a data-driven selection process now, unlike it ever has been before in USA Football with medical and physical testing. Once you make the national team, we fly you out to Charlotte for 2 training camps in the summer. We house you, we feed you, we put you up to train with your teammates, to train with your coaches in this elite high-performance environment, and we fly you back out for that main competition in the summer. For the juniors, that's the Junior Cup. For the adults this year, it happens to be the IFAF Continentals. But this is a national team program unlike USA Football has ever had before. And like the quantum leap we're taking in 23 can't be understated. So if I was an athlete, I would be really fired up to get in at the ground floor now, because this thing's about to take off like a rocket ship, and we're going to start training at Olympic levels as early as 23, and it's only going to get better. So everything that Charles talked about in the community, in the youth space, in the adolescent space, in high school, growing the sport, grassroots, that's all there. That's bread and butter USA Football stuff. I think what the community needs to know about is this unbelievable step in class we're taking with our high performance and with our national teams. And at 23, you're quite literally going to be training and treated like an Olympian.
I couldn't be, as an athlete recreationally, in the sport. I have a day job that I'm busy in, but I might have to talk to the wife, about my own submissions, about what I might be able to put in, because my gym is good. I don't know if it's elite, but no, in all seriousness, this is exactly kind of why we want to have these conversations. This is what athletes need to know. In addition to the access, the information, right? Because, this is something where the elite athletes, like we've talked about so far, they come from everywhere. They're very busy focusing on whatever greatness that they are currently pursuing. And to have material, to have this information, to have these conversations is vital. to bring this to the elite athletes. Don't make them go search for it. That's what athletes have had to do for the last 80 years. Figure it out, hustle, try to do everything, in their grasp to just find that next opportunity. Now USA Football, they're taking the steps. They're coming to you. They're making it as easy as possible to get started. Ian and Chuck are both laying out the path in front of you, starting with the combine, then going to the in-person events, what it could be, elite facilities, the sky is the limit, the dream team. Chuck, Ian, before we go, I know we've outlined quite a bit about the combine, the types of players, all of the exciting things happening for USA Football. What else do, athletes listening or what more do you want the audience to know about the sport? Or are we ready to get started? Where are we
Yeah,
at?
no, Joey, I appreciate it, and I'll let Chuck take us home. But for me, it's to thank you. Thank you for having us. Game Time lines up to be a home run partner for us for exactly those reasons that you talked about. You help us get that message out there. You help us find elite athletes. You help the elite athletes find us. Game Time's just shaping up to be a killer partner for us, and we're really excited with what this first digital combine means from October to December. If you're interested, if you like what you heard today, put your submission in. You have nothing to lose. Like, get to know us, get to know USA Football, be a part of that digital combine. Come out and check out our websites. Come out and check flag football tournaments that may be in your town. Find out where it's getting played competitively. This thing's about to take off like a shot. Some may say that it's kind of already taking off like a shot, but as far as the national team is concerned, Joey, I think I just want to leave the athletes. If I was an elite athlete today and I was so inclined to continue my athletic career, I didn't know what, my sport, I can't go pro in my sport. Whatever sport that was, it's just not there for me, or there's not that professional option, or I'm ready to continue being an athlete, but I don't know what I want to do. I think we could be that home for you in a really meaningful way. Um, and we're not shy about embracing that LA 28 games and what that means. We're not a slam dunk. We're not a lock by any means. There's incredible sports that are all vying to be part of this last group of sports that's included in 28. But it's very much been our North Star. That's everything that we've been shooting for. I think the community needs to know that. And with what Charlotte means, with what the USPC means, we're trying to train at Olympic levels in a manner befitting of Olympians already in 23, so that if that light turns on for us in 28, we're already on our way. And if I was an athlete and I had the opportunity to get in at the ground floor, that would be really, really compelling. So for our adults in the adult space, I would just, again, I'd encourage you to come out and be a part of that digital combine. Get to know the sport of flag football. It's dynamic, it's fast, it's fun, it's explosive. It lends itself to elite athleticism. If you're one of those people that pride yourself, you happen to think, well, I'm not a bad athlete. I think this is the kind of sport for you because it really does allow you to showcase that. And then again, if you have kids, or if you're in that youth space or in that youth mindset, get your kids involved early, because I think the way that we all grew up playing tackle, that's what's happening with flag right now. The flag youth player today is going to stay with the game. There's going to be high school options. There's going to be college options. This isn't going away. It's only getting more popular. So get them in early. Get them in early in the sport at the youth level. The good news is, if you're an adult, it's definitely not too late. And with something like the talent transfer camp, it's the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and I think Ian, you basically just nailed it all home. I mean, that was the nail in the coffin right there, because you knocked out everything I was getting ready to say. I'll end with this. Just, I know my personal journey after my college days were up, and then I made my way into the professional arena. It was extremely hard to find that opportunity. So for folks that are on the Game Time platform already, and folks that are listening to this podcast, listen, this is a no-brainer. This is a layup. You have to make sure that you submit your stuff, because there's nothing more than that we want to see than an athlete who wants it, who's hungry, and who's excited to be a part of what's getting ready to come for the U.S. national team and for football, for America as a whole. So, like Ian said, 2028 is definitely the goal, and this is definitely one of the biggest steps for us towards that.
And if you're watching this podcast, if you're on Game Time, you're interested in representing your country. You're interested in continuing your athletic career. You're obviously in that mindset already, what it could mean to be a part of a national governing body. Can I actually be an Olympian? Can I get in the Olympic movement? Here's your chance. This is another great opportunity for you.
And both of you ended this perfectly. And Chuck, you talked a little bit about your story. And that's, as a company, what we're interested in. We're interested in the story of each and every athlete. Now, Chuck and Ian are busy. They're building the future of football. But when you submit that clip, you're starting that relationship. And we're going to help tell that story, position yourself so that Chuck and Ian can see everything that they need to make the decisions. You heard them. They're trying to build an elite organization for the long term, for the long haul. This isn't, short-term decision making here. This is from the foundation up, everything as an elite athlete you're going to want to need. So what are you waiting for? Click that link below. The link's going to be in the show notes. And for all athletes tuning in, again, continue to utilize sports as a vehicle for opportunities. Get better every single day. Show up. This is yet another opportunity to make sports that next opportunity. Tune in next time. We'll be back. Thank you.